Hello, afternoon, everyone. This is a rather cloudy Sunday in Singapore. I'm not sure what your weather's like over there. And I'd just like to say hello to anyone who's going to join us later on. And I have a interesting and special guest with me today. We're going to have a very chill chat out session in this live with Red Dot Diva today. Our topic is about guilty pleasures. But before that, we will also kind of like do a little short chat with her about her job and her works, what she has published so far. Before I bring her in, I'm just going to give a short introduction about myself. I'm Red Dot Diva. I'm based in Singapore. I've done like covered entertainment and lifestyle stuff around the Singapore and the region. And I decided to start this live with Red Dot Diva live stream around COVID time where everybody was having their own pandemic hobbies or so called. And I was also, consuming a lot of videos on YouTube and the internet. And then whenever I see something on my feed relating to Asia and the creativity in Asia, things that are put out like in art form in Asia, published wise comics or art, even performing arts, then it usually comes out that it's based in Japan, China, or maybe the most popular one nowadays, South Korea, and I felt that as a Singaporean in the region of Southeast Asia, we are very kind of like unknown in the world at large. And I know that there are a lot of creative people in this region. And throughout my years covering pop culture, I know a lot of artists, I know a lot of performing art actors and even writers who do a lot of interesting works that people do not know of internationally. And I decided to have this Live with Red Dot Diva to showcase their work and have them talk about the stuff that they do. And I thought that would be interesting. And if anybody, comes upon my live streams, they could see a whole archive of the interesting people that are living in this region. And I think you could kind of pick up on their writing works or their art and enjoy them as well. And, get to know the Southeast Asian region and the people in this region, like, Philippines, Malaysia, and Singapore. There's so many interesting things you can learn about us, and not just think of Asia as the eastern parts of Asia. There's also Southeast Asia. And from Southeast Asia today, I have a very special guest, and I'm going to put her on stage. Hello, Renren.
Hi, hello Tina and everyone watching.
Yes. I got to know Renren actually from a recommendation from a pretty good friend of mine in Singapore called Alan Bay. And I was telling him that, I really like to have a female guest for 2025 and the start of the year. So when I started this live stream, right, back in 2020, I guess, I started with a female creator as well. And because I'm a woman and I felt that not just Southeast Asian is underrepresented, I feel that female creators are also underrepresented. And I always wanted to start the year of each Life with Red Dot Diva series with a woman creator. And he said that, you could even ask Renren, because I think he was in SWF, Singapore Writers Festival as well. And he said, I think he would really make a good guest. And I think you were the first one I invited. And I was so glad that you said yes.
Yes, I think I met Alan we were on the same panel for SWF, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Maybe for the people who are watching it and not familiar with you, you could probably give a short introduction about yourself.
Okay, so hi, I'm Renren Galeno. That's Ren, and I feel like I have to explain the Ren to X because like a lot of foreigners don't understand what it is. They think it's like a cyborg name, but it's just I think a very Filipino way to indicate that you say a name twice. So that's Ren two times. So Ren.
Is it a nickname that you
Yes,
have
it's a
acquired?
nickname. So I am a comic book author and a visual artist from the Philippines. I am the author of Sawala, and it's my very first book. Yeah. It's a graphic novel about a rooster and a family. And it's the family's breadwinner encountering a chicken on the side of the road, and after seeing that he's super feisty, he decides to bring it home to use for sabong, or cockfighting, as we call it in the Philippines. The chicken reveals himself to have a thirst for blood, and hijinks ensue. Yeah, it's my first graphic novel, and I'm super proud of it.
I did read it, and it's ooh. I don't
It's
think
a
I can
little
ever look at a
gross.
plate of chicken rice ever the same again.
I can guarantee, like, after I finished drawing it, I actually didn't eat chicken for like 2 months. I was just sick of it at that point.
Before we go into that, I know before you did Sawala, right? There was another piece of work that um, brought you to the forefront of some international acclaim, which is Searching for Maura. It was a Washington Post investigative piece, right? Piece on the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair exposition,
Yes.
something. And I did read out slightly about that event. And I was like, I knew that there were such events happening during the, early 20th century, but I didn't really go into the deep rabbit hole about these kind of expositions and what they actually entail. So the story about Maura, about 1,500 Filipinos from different regions and their different tribes were actually brought to St. Louis to like show off as a human zoo, right? And this story about Maura, please tell me more about it. And um, how do you get the gig in the first place? Uh, did somebody know of your work and then they kind of recommended you to Washington Post?
I'm not quite sure how they found me, but they knew of me from another piece of work that I did.
Mm.
It's called "I Pray You're Born with Gills," and that was with the 10 Years to Save the World anthology. So that was with if I'm not mistaken, a British publisher, or like a British collective. So there were 10 of us in that anthology, and it's available to read online. So they did mention that particular piece of work in the email. In the email that I thought at the time was a scam, or maybe someone was just playing a mean like trick on me. And I say that all the time just because it feels very unbelievable. The editor,
Mm.
the editor of the comic, Hannah Good, sent me a message. I believe it was February of 2023, and they offered me this to illustrate this story. So I only saw the headline, and that was just about the an Igorot woman being sent to the World's Fair.
Yeah.
And at the time, that was I was like, okay, this is a very powerful story. It's a very sad story, so I knew that there was a lot of pressure just from seeing that at the beginning,
Mm.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
this is a tough job. But I was also very eager to work with them at that point.
Yeah.
And when we had our first meeting, I also received the first draft of the script, and yeah, we just began working from
Mm.
there.
Yeah. And talking about like, the how you say, the stories that come from Southeast Asia. So even being born here and living here for so long, I tend to be kind of more or less familiar with, let's say, the stories in Malaysia. Of course, we are closely related to Malaysia in our history. And then maybe I know more about the Indonesian side of it, maybe a bit of the Thai. Vietnamese, not that much, but also because I know the Philippines is kind of close to us in many ways, but I don't really, only for the last maybe 5 years or so, I start to see more Filipino stories emerging out. And I'm very glad about that because I've always been curious about the Philippines that was before the American colonization took place. And a lot of it has been lost. But then again, this story that you had, the Searching for Maura, uh, I think it was new to you as well. Did you know about it happening?
Definitely. I knew of human zoos, but I did not think to push further. And I learned most of what I know now only through the research that was given to me. Because when we began production, I was given a lot of documents. So there were so many pictures. And I think what was the most striking for me would have been the pictures of particular indigenous peoples posing in their
Mm,
clothes,
yeah,
because I didn't know that they weren't taken in the Philippines.
yeah.
Some of these photos were familiar to me because I was a high school student and I had to make presentations about this, so I would put them in PowerPoint presentations. But it was then working on that I kind of understood the context of
Mm,
where
mm,
that photo came from,
mm.
and it felt like a very sobering
Yeah, yeah,
moment as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. It's a very heartbreaking story, and I guess I would really love more people, to be aware and to know about these stories as well, and how colonization has actually affected a lot of us in Southeast Asia. I think the only country that maybe didn't face that much was Thailand. The rest of us had faced a lot of the effects of colonization, and some of it are good. Some of it, most of it may be bad, you know. But it's part of our history, and it's part of the story that emerges from us in recent times as well. Um, let's get away from the sad parts. Do you have a favorite genre when you're creating a graphic novel? Is there something that you would really want to get into in the next book?
Oh, I'm very obviously a horror artist. Um, yeah, I started making comics around after I graduated from college. So I was a painting major, and then I went back to comics almost immediately. I don't know, so something happened, and I just wanted to make comics. And my very first comic ever was actually just like 7 pages long, and it also featured a chicken. So it was also a horror comic. And then ever since then, I just kept making horror themed things. And I don't know. I don't just consume horror. I don't really think of myself as like a horror connoisseur, but when I write or when I draw, it just turns out to be horror. And I think it's because I really like drawing certain images. So I feel like horror makes the most sense for those types of drawings. Or
uh, someone says that horror is kind of like the panacea, or like um, it's a catharsis for us, right? Living
I
in,
think so,
in
yeah.
in the usual reality of life, and we just kind of like escape, and some of us tend to escape into the horror genre.
It's pretty fun. I think it's a very playful medium. Like you have a lot of opportunity to play with your narrative, or you play with your reader, kind of, not in like a
Mm,
malicious
mm, mm.
way,
Yeah, I
but
know.
you create this world for them and they get to explore it, and I think
Yeah,
that's a lot of
yeah.
fun.
And if it's a really good one, right, you tend to just get so immersed in that particular that storyline or that space, so called.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's one thing I liked about your book. I think right from the
Thank
start
you.
already, yeah, right on the start there was this you kind of like getting into the zone. And the chicken, oh my gosh, horrifying, terrifying thing. I mean,
My very oh sorry.
yeah, no, no, go ahead.
My very first model for that chicken was a
Yeah.
chicken I actually had. So it was like
Oh,
a pet
really?
chicken.
So
Yeah,
was
so
his eyes kind of like steamy?
no, not quite. He was actually a very handsome boy.
Oh,
He's a very handsome chicken. But he got sick. But he's
oh,
immortalized forever in Sawala.
um, in your opinion, right? How do you think um, us as a whole in Southeast Asia is able to uplift, the works around our region and to get more international audiences familiar with us in general?
I
Because I
think
think,
oh yes,
yeah,
please
I think
continue, Tina.
maybe I don't know about, uh, because I was been thinking about that for quite some time, and I guess I think Philippines is kind of the forefront now, whereby I think Paulo Harris is doing quite a good thing with Comic Cat and putting more titles out there, and they are getting into other book fairs. Um, for Singapore, I think is okay, kind of like not too bad, but I think more should be done because it's more that the problem with Singapore is not the opportunities. I think it's about the culture that it is in this place where it's a lot more financially driven, practical, and so people who are creative tend to feel that they do not have the outlet, the freedom or the like the drive to put something out there because everybody tends to be very practical. So when you put out an idea, it's very hard to sell it in Singapore. It has to be like money driven. It has to make some sense, meet the KPI, that kind of thing that's in Singapore. So I wonder if what are the things that we can do as a region, like as a whole, together, some of us together to be able to put it out there. Or I'm no, no, I'm just throwing, ideas out there. I'm eager to find out what you think.
Well, first of all, shout out to Sir Paulo Heras,
Yes.
who
Shout out.
runs Comiket.
Yeah.
Yeah, they published Sawala and really helped me kind of get it together and championed the book really throughout all these book fairs. And he does the same for
Yeah.
other authors. So yes, shout out to Sir Paulo and Comiket. um, Secondly, I think we should start at home because I feel like there are so many creators who are so eager to work, and
Yeah.
we never lack
Yeah.
creativity. I feel like we need a stronger like readership, like educated and educated readers, accessible books, and getting a really good reading culture around our young students,
Mm.
because I feel like maybe it's an us problem, like the Philippines. I feel like we don't have a lot of libraries that are
Okay.
super accessible to the public. I I remember coming back home from college. I went to the University of the Philippines, which is a pretty good university. We had a bunch of libraries that I always had access to, and I feel like I really found myself there, and I was really happy. And also went to other schools that had wonderful libraries, and I feel like if everyone had like that opportunity to have an easily accessible library that was well maintained, had a bunch of books, I feel like we could build a stronger readership. And it's like a war for attention, really.
Yeah.
Like
Really. Because of
and
TikTok, all
yes,
this very short form, and the need for attention is so short.
it's really difficult, especially among the younger generation, right? The younger
Same here.
students. It's a struggle to keep them engaged in something like a comic book or a picture book, and we're struggling to hold on to that. And I
Mm.
feel like it's also because, well, TikTok and social media and maybe other internet
Yeah.
things are just easily accessible.
Yes.
They can
Yeah.
have it at any time. And
True.
if we strive to like teach them to read and give them the resources to read at home, we'll build a stronger reader culture together in our respective regions, and hopefully like encourage our creators, and
Yeah.
we will go forth and
Yeah. Yeah.
be more
Very good
encouraged.
point.
And
I think I do agree with you. I think it's probably one of the key factors. That's a really very
yeah.
good point. But it's also a struggle. I understand.
It
Even
is
in
absolutely.
Singapore, it's a struggle to get more people to read. Uh, you tend to see the older people in book fairs and all that. Like in even
Yeah.
in SWF, you tend to see the older ones. Like the younger ones are no longer really reading per se, and I think that's sad. So yeah, I guess we have to keep encouraging people to read more.
Yes. More
And
reading initiatives.
yeah, not only I think yes, I agree on the visual art side of it, but I guess when you read, you are also actually expanding your mind, so called, so that you're more willing to accept and explore, uh, and keep that sense of curiosity, so that you'll be able to kind of like appreciate other things as well. That's what I
Yeah.
find. Yeah. So yeah, I think you made a very good point. So going into, like, we are talking about reading now, right? So, and we are going to talk about guilty pleasures. Do you have any guilty pleasure reading that you do?
Ooh, I read a lot of like fan fiction, which is like I really enjoy fan fiction, and I am now not ashamed to say it. But like before, I guess because I thought I was an academic, quote unquote. Like I wanted to be seen as this academic person. So for a while, I was like a little ashamed of it, as well as maybe more romance driven comics. For a while, I was a little ashamed to admit that I really, really enjoyed them. But there's something there. I won't even try to defend myself. I just enjoy them. So I feel like they're
Uh,
like not in line with my job, quote unquote, or with my practice or my study. And I feel like I feel guilt because it feels like I should be doing more quote unquote academic things, but no, I just really enjoy it.
yeah.
So I'm gonna do it.
I mean, so to put the topic in context about guilty pleasures, uh, it's about things that you kind of enjoy doing so much, but then maybe you are, like you say, afraid to admit that you like doing it, because it may seem to be unproductive or lowbrow, but it's still things that we love. Those are what we are going to talk about, and about guilty pleasures. And I think guilty is kind of like a misnomer as well. I think it's more like I'm a kind of ashamed to admit, rather than
Yeah.
feeling actual guilt.
I do think that it's like anything you feel shame for consuming or enjoying. So
Yeah, it's a
it
guilty
doesn't feel
pleasure.
like straight up guilt. And I think shame is also just relative, really. Like the meaning of it can change, or the source of the shame changes over time.
Um, I don't really do that much like guilty pleasure reading, but I did get into fanfic for a while as well. Some years back, and some of them were like, okay, some of them was terrible. Some of them were terrible. The fanfiction.net, right? And there was this
Yes,
whole
the
list of,
four.
yeah, some were horribly written. I mean, they were like, but it was hard to find something that you really like. And when you found one that was really good, it was like, what? It's only like chapter two. Come on, when is chapter three coming out?
I think fan fiction is really cool because I think what's nice about it is you realize that people are so eager to write. They just want
Yeah,
to create and
yeah,
stuff.
and
So
especially when
it
the
comes
show's
from
been
a place of love.
cancelled, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, before it's been actually resolved with a proper ending, and then people's like, oh, we still want our characters to go on.
So they make their own, and I think it's very sweet. It's very
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. I thought some of them are really talented though.
It's true.
Yeah, they're
It's
really
I
really
know a
good
bunch
writers.
of fan fictions get like movies and
Yeah, yeah,
stuff these
yeah.
days. They
That
just
it was
change
a
the
good
names.
Yeah, it was a good place to start, I guess, for those who like they felt they have this burst, like, well of creativity, but unable to um show off it in some other more legitimate ways. It was fun. Yeah, I remember fan fictions. But I mostly indulge in stuff like uh people will tell me they're lame as well. Like, why? These are kind of like very lame shows that are the same all the time. And these are procedural shows, you know, Law and Order,
I enjoy
NCIS,
procedural shows. They're so nice. They're pretty
CSI.
cool.
I
They're
mean,
very
they're,
cool.
they're
I enjoy them.
they're full of fluff because they might not be real. Like not, I mean, in the real life, the procedures won't be like this and not resolved within 24 hours or 48 hours or so called, in this manner. But yeah, I love watching procedural shows for some reason. I think it brings certain kind of comfort because there's a certain format to how they resolve the crime
Yeah, and
within
the
an
the
episode.
episodic nature of it as well. I feel like it's also because it's really easy to follow a procedural show once you kind of get the formula down. And I feel the
Yeah.
same way about like medical shows. Like I'm not updated with Grey's Anatomy anymore, but
Oh, I used
there
to
are
watch
other
only
shows
one or
like it.
two seasons.
That's
I
like
didn't follow. Yeah, it was too long. Yeah.
it's a
But
lot of them.
ER, I finished the whole thing
ER
many,
is
many
so
years ago.
long.
Yeah, that was good actually. ER was quite good.
I think that was the very first. It started the whole medical show genre,
with,
maybe.
with a very
And there are a
young George
bunch now.
Clooney.
There was yes, very young George
Yeah,
Clooney. It was great to watch. I watched it through reruns as a kid, and although I
yeah.
didn't understand what was going on, I enjoyed George Clooney. He was there till
Yeah,
the end.
yeah. I think Grey Anatomy is the main one now, but there's a new one coming up. I think I can't remember which. I can't remember the title at the moment, but it seems to be had getting good reviews about Noah Wiley. I think he got a script green lighted and it premiered recently. Can't remember the title now. Seems to be quite good. I don't know. Maybe
There
there's
are
another
quite a
one to
few
start
of
with.
them.
Yeah.
There's like The Resident and other stuff. There was one that was named after a hospital, but there are so many of them. I can't keep up. You just have to pick one and stick with it, I think.
And then you also told me you got binging into one other series.
Yes, I just finished I just finished Gilmore Girls, which is and it ended in a completely different way from what I expected the series
Yeah.
to be.
You're talking about what the last one, right?
The Year in the Life
Yeah, yeah, not like
um,
yeah.
that I kind of reject. I I know it was the I know it was the writer's original vision because
Yeah,
I really went down the rabbit hole because I demanded like an explanation as to why this
yeah.
was all happening. And I found out that the original writer was not involved in the final season, I
Mm,
think.
no,
So
she left the show. Yeah,
they wanted
yeah,
to retcon, right? They wanted to
yeah,
retcon it
yeah,
and they made a year in the life so they could end it the way they wanted for
yeah,
it to end originally. But
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but
um,
Gilmore Girls was quite fun from
it
in the beginning
was.
part.
I did enjoy Gilmore Girls as a whole still, although things got really messy. I
Yeah,
think it's a very honest show.
mm,
And like there were like no perfect characters
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
so to speak. So it was still very, very enjoyable. And this is a Filipino phrase. It's called it's not a Filipino phrase. I think me and my friend made it up, but we use it to we use it to describe Rory and Lorelai. It's we call it kurot singit behavior, which means you like kind of pinch her crotch, I suppose. Like you pinch the inside of her thigh really hard because sometimes she does something that's so out of
yeah.
whack.
So, oh,
You
yeah,
you will really just want to pinch her. You and I feel like that's kind of also the driving factor of the show is just how much lower can she go because she starts from a very this incredible place really like she was every I suppose every 2000s teenager's dream. Like she's this very
Yeah,
well read,
yeah,
articulate
yeah. And have a good
teenager.
relationship with a mom who can she fits as
Yeah.
the best friend.
And it
Oh,
just and things just happen.
yeah, yeah. And I know we have a viewer here. Hey, hey, Pasibas. I hope that's not
Hello.
how you pronounce. I never really pronounced your nickname in for real. He says the one of the new medical shows called
Oh
New
yeah, New
Amsterdam. Is that the one you're
Amsterdam.
talking about?
Yes. Yeah, that one. I haven't actually seen it, but in TikTok, which apparently just got banned in America recently.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've ever encountered in TikTok, they kind of chop up these these shows, right? And then they just post it on TikTok for some reason. And I found out about New Amsterdam
I
that way.
haven't really watched New Amsterdam. Is it good? I'm not sure. Because
I can't tell it
I'm deep
apart.
into the procedurals now. Maybe I should go into
Yeah.
the medical ones next.
Law and Order is pretty good. I know that
I know,
that's how
right?
I watched Law and Order.
So I started the Law and Order franchise watch. I think about it took a long time, so I'm still going through it. I think maybe 2 years ago. So slowly, if I have time, I know I start to get on and started from the first Law and Order, and then some of the spin-offs, right? So now I'm kind of like going into Law and Order SVU season 14. And
Oh
it was so
my.
interesting, right? Because when you look back in the 1990s and some of these actors who were on it, and I would screenshot whoever I found that was interesting, and you will find people like Pedro Pascal, who was there like 3 times in different guest roles.
Yeah.
There was who else as well? There was Adam Driver. I think he was twice there, and they were so
Good.
young, and it was so interesting to see how they have started from guest roles in procedurals and series like this to big movie stars now. It was so
Yeah,
interesting.
especially the kids. The kids
Yeah,
are when they
oh,
grow up.
kids as well when they are younger, right? The last one I saw was I can't remember. There was so many. Oh, uh, what's her name? See, now it escapes me, but yeah, there was so many actors and actresses who guest starred in those shows. It was so interesting, and I will pick them up and post it on my Facebook just to keep it as an archive. And they show the
You have a
pictures
little
of how they
index.
were. Yeah, and like an index of Law and Order. So interesting. And but the Gilmore Girls, yes. Other than Gilmore Girls, I was at certain point, I think in the past. I mean, you were making me like want to go back and watch these shows again.
They're very
I can
interesting
tell
to
you,
watch, I think, with
I
a
can tell you
modern
the shows that I
lens.
watch. And when I told my friend, one of my friends, like she's saying that, but they're so trashy.
Oh
I can tell you, the one that she said that was very trashy was Desperate Housewives.
no. Oh no. I
Yeah,
watched a little bit of Desperate Housewives, but
yeah.
I feel like at the time I knew that it was for older people, so I only really watched like tiny bits of it. So that was like real guilt. That was real like childhood guilt. Now, oh, my parents don't want me to watch this.
It was so trashy, right? Because all the housewives are like bickering with each other, and then they were, there were a lot of how do you say competition between each other,
A lot
and
of
all their
drama.
relationships, all the drama and this county sack of a district and their houses and everything. It was kind of like funny, as well as you feel like, okay, I'm not sure what you call that in the Philippines, but in Singapore we'll say that we are Kpo people, which means busybody people, and you feel like when you watch these shows, you're one of those busybody people who are just looking into all this drama happening in their households. And the
It's like
other
a
one,
almost like a soap opera kind of
yeah,
thing
yeah,
going
yeah,
on with the
yeah, not
drama.
yeah, not as long as soap operas though. Yeah, I
Yeah,
wasn't really into soap operas. Funnily enough, I find that they were too long,
they
too
were
long.
very long.
Yeah, so I wasn't
But
into
that
soap
was
operas.
afternoon entertainment in the Philippines. for a really long time. There would be Filipino dubbed Spanish soap operas.
Yeah.
So that was also a part of the stuff that I enjoyed as a child.
So the Mexican type of telenovelas, right? Do y'all get that?
I think so. I maybe that was Mexican. I'm not actually sure, but the one that I remember very vividly is called Pasión de Amor. Pasión de Amor is also incredibly long. It's about three sisters and three brothers and their one sister. Of course, if I try to summarize any telenovela, we will stay here all day.
Yeah, I know, right? All the twists and turns, all the deaths, and suddenly he reappeared again.
Yeah, those convoluted, almost funny storyline.
That's funny. Oh, but you must say, yeah, procedural shows also a pleasure for many of. Nice. Now I know who to look for when I want to discuss about procedural shows. And the other one I used to watch as well. I don't know whether you are familiar. The OC.
I've seen parts of the OC, but
Benjamin, Ben
was it
McKenzie,
canceled?
and
Was
Misha
or that
Barton.
maybe that's another thing.
It was of Orange County, so OC, yeah, the rich LA kind of setting. So it was a poor guy meets rich girl.
Oh,
Kind
I see.
story.
That kind of romance
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Is it a romance?
It's quite trashy and interesting, but yeah. But I think a lot of people grew up on the OC or like One Tree Hill.
Oh, I remember
The
One
kind of
Tree Hill.
setting. Yeah. Gossip Girl.
I loved Gossip Girl. But I watched it very late in life, so I was in like not late in life. That's very dramatic. I watched it in college, so it aired originally while I was in high school, and I watched it completely in college. But I really enjoyed all those twists and turns, really. But I feel like, I mean, even if you're a writer and you don't think of it as like an academic quote unquote pursuit, you can learn a lot from
Yeah.
what they exaggerate
Yeah.
and kind of these characters.
Mm.
It's pretty interesting.
I think they're very creative in creating some of these twists and turns. I mean, to know that for us, right, we've been watching so many shows, and yet some of these twists and turns are really like, what?
And I from what I know, they changed their ending based off of fan theories, right? They wanted
Oh,
to
yeah.
a
Oh, I didn't know about
surprise. And
that.
so it's like that. I think the real time reaction also and interaction
Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah.
fan bases is
Yeah, yeah.
very interesting, so to speak.
Yeah, I think with the internet that came more prominent in terms of fan reactions and how they actually so invested in these characters that they love all the ships, so called. Were you into ships?
Gossip Girl. I could not. I did not participate in the fan wars. I've never participated in a fan war, but I have seen all that happening. I feel like the first exposure to it was Twilight. The
Oh,
Team
yeah.
Edward, Team
That
Jacob
was like
stuff.
explosion of fandom based internet. I think the most prominent one
And it
that
was the
emerged.
perfect storm because everyone was starting to get into like microblogging and and Twilight had just
Tumblr,
come out. Yeah, exactly. All of the
Tumblr,
edits and stuff. So
fan
and
fan
everyone has arts.
fan art.
Yes, fan art. Lots
All
of
the
fan
fan
art from
art.
people too. But even these kinds of shows breed a lot of creativity. Like even
Yeah,
if a lot of people might dismiss it as maybe lowbrow, there you really can't discount like the impact they have on someone who's young and who wants to
yeah,
create.
yeah.
It's like a jumping point for a lot of us.
I think a lot of the young people actually started to be more brave when they could um, express themselves in that way, either by fan fiction, fan art, or even just some of them blogging about their theories about certain things,
Hmm.
or even some of them which I find quite interesting was they really went to deep dive into the psyche of the characters and why they did certain
Yeah.
things that they did.
Right now I'm seeing that a lot with like Arcane. I think
Oh yes,
I'm seeing that right now, the most prominently. They're really really into Arcane, and I think what's great about Arcane too is not a guilty pleasure. It's very
yeah, it's not
it's
a
a
guilty
very
pleasure
good
though. I
show
think it's quite productive
because
because it's
I
such
feel
a
like it's
I think
beautiful.
Arcane
It's a
is such a
beautiful show,
beautiful piece of thing, like a beautiful piece
and it's
of
very
work.
well thought of. I think
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
creators
That's
are
not
very
really guilty pleasure
careful
in
in
my
considering.
sense. I watch it with like so much admiration for all those who are involved. Yeah. Yeah,
And
but you're saying
it's
that it's a in thing now here in Philippines?
yeah, I feel like a lot of people are well in Tumblr as well. They everyone's always been into the theory stuff, but I think with Arcane, it's just like there's just so much to work with, even though it's like an animated show.
Yeah.
It's I feel like every scene is super jam packed with information, so everyone likes going back and forth and like scrolling through the whole thing for hidden Easter eggs or
Mm,
opportunities to connect things
yeah.
together, and it's really interesting to see that, and more so when you realize that a lot of these people are like super young. So
Yeah, I know, right?
it's very encouraging.
Very young,
And
yeah, some of them. I love that they are actually that it gives them a channel, to express themselves. And some of these actually these young people uh, move on to bigger and better things because they find traction and an appreciation for what they are expressing. So, yeah, I don't think, as I said, guilty pleasures is kind of a misnomer. I think it's more of the joy that you get from indulging in these kind of things, and knowing that it may not be actually a thing that will bring up something productive or something very super artistic in the way of fine art, or high art,
yeah.
but it's still something very creative in a sense. Uh, and I know for a long time, horror was considered quite lowbrow as well, right? But
Mm-mm.
it's becoming something that like people are appreciating the art of horror a bit more. It's not easy to
Yeah.
make a really good horror story, actually, or horror film.
I feel like it's because maybe before they we were a little bit more conservative as well. So the gore was seen as kind of just like a tacky, oh this is like just gore. But now I feel like more artists are so there more artists are more purposeful with their use of
Mm,
even if it's something like violence or something like gore. I feel like if it's a purposeful
mm,
use of
mm,
that, or if it
mm.
really contributes to your story, it can be meaningful. I think.
Yeah.
And if I still enjoy like a good semi senseless slasher fic here and there, like a slasher movie or a series, I feel like there's still value in just that kind of visceral imagery. You can still feel things, but uh yeah, I really
Let me think of
enjoy
which.
the recent
Okay, I'm
horror.
not a really big fan of horror, um, but I do enjoy some horror shows. So I'm trying to think about which horror movie I watched recently that was kind of enjoyable in a sense. And the one that pops out in my mind was Megan.
Oh, Megan's
The
fun.
robot.
Megan's very
Robot.
fun.
That was so fun to watch.
It was like a horror and an action movie,
Yeah,
but Megan herself, like the doll and the doll's dialogue was very
yeah,
funny. So I
yeah.
feel like even if you're averse to some of her more graphic scenes, she
So
kind of
fun.
like tones it down because she's so funny.
Was so fun to watch that one. And it's memorable because of the way she's the character of Megan is being crafted. So even though
Yeah.
she's kind of like a robot, but she has a certain kind of character So it
Yeah, she's sassy.
just sticks into your mind. You're beginning to think that, do you need a robot in the house? Maybe
Mm,
not.
a
Uh,
little scary. Just the fact that she's a sentient robot, I think, is scary enough for me.
I don't know how things are going to go in the future when more robotics is coming into the
Mm,
household. Already there are horror stories like Black Mirror talking about how the home is going to
yeah.
control you.
I feel like Black Mirror is actually more. I know it's like a sci-fi horror, but I think that's like really horrific too.
Oh, it's
Like
horrific.
the stuff in Black Mirror is really scary.
But I also think that when you are very busy, or you are just working 5 days a week, let's say for us who are having our day jobs, and then when you come back, right, and it's the guilty pleasures that you just kind of like indulge in for an hour or two just to get your mind away from the drudgery of work or a bad day at work with your colleagues and the boss. And I think our brains need rest. In fact, I would probably probably say that guilty pleasures are quite important to us from time to time, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely agree. Um, because it's like a creator maybe or someone who does creative work, you do want to keep up with um a lot of the quote unquote academic stuff, which to me is just comics still, but and maybe additional supplementary stuff. But I feel like when I consume comics now or when I read a comic book, it's almost as if I'm trying to study. So
Mm,
there
mm,
the element of rest, it still exists, but
mm.
I feel like my relationship with comic books and fiction novels maybe has changed since I started working creatively. Now it feels like I have to take down notes. It's not something that is bad for me. I enjoy it. I still enjoy reading things in that way, but it's difficult to turn it
Yeah,
off.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I feel like these other shows give me a nice opportunity for really just rest and pure entertainment. Because when I work in front of a computer screen all day and I'm drawing, I usually play like a reality TV show because they're so easy to
Yeah, I
follow
know.
and
I get what you mean exactly. Like,
they narrate things to
yeah,
you,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So the thing happens, they narrate the thing to you and they give their thoughts, and then there's another person who kind of gives their version of events, and it's so easy to follow it in that way. And also you kind of get this interesting insight into um, their psyche or kind of like the character writing, quote
Yeah.
unquote, that goes on because they do their thing, they tell you their truth, and then you hear another truth. So it's still somewhat learning, but now there's more drama and explosiveness. So it's entertaining, and those reality shows kind of stay with me and keep me company while I'm working throughout the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
So I'm grateful to that also.
Reality shows. Yeah, I haven't really watched any recently, but there was a time I was kind of like sucked into the world of American Top Model.
I love Top
Naomi,
Model.
it was so trashy. I mean,
Top Model is so good to me. Also, the Asia's
it
Next Top
was so
Model was also
trashy,
so cool.
but it was kind of amazing. I mean, I'm just a simple person. I don't really put on much makeup. I'm not fashionable whatsoever. But it was just amazing to see how much uh, kind of like things that they need to learn in order to model well, maybe especially for photography, you
Mm,
know, and the little things that they had to teach them, like um, to act as well when you're doing a photo shoot, like to embody that character, so called. when there's an ad or something like this, which is, I never thought of it that way. I mean, at that time I said, well, it's a model, you just get on there and walk the catwalk and,
Yeah. I
yeah,
thought
but
back then as well, like before I watched it, that oh, you're a beautiful person. Of
yeah,
course, you
yeah,
can
yeah.
model. But when I think I also got like a better perspective and understanding of like the art
Mhm.
form, not just of the
Yeah,
models, but of the
yeah,
photographers.
yeah,
Especially because I was like a kid and just generally very ignorant
yeah,
at
yeah,
the
yeah.
time.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't a kid, but I was totally ignorant on that aspect of what it took for a, even like what you see on the magazines that we have last time, right? What it took for that photo to be printed, the effort that it takes. Everything from the makeup, the styling, the
Yeah,
clothing,
it's a whole
the
crew.
whole damn thing. I didn't know. I didn't know. But of course, yes, it was trashy. There was a lot of drama. There's a
Which
lot of
is also what
competition.
made it like memorable. Like I feel like I remember the faces of the
The
quote
ones that
unquote
won.
like the more aggressive
Yeah, yeah,
ones.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
feel
yeah.
like I remember them more. I remember their faces more than the others. I don't know what that says about me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, I think in that sense, I I I feel that we shouldn't judge people from what they actually watch because because I think it creates joy for certain people. I mean,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't watch K drama because, as I said, I don't really like um shows that take too long time to kind of evolve, and then it just goes on and on. My attention span is not that involved, so I don't watch K dramas. And also the over I feel that that's too much over dramatization that I'm not comfortable with. But people who watch K drama, right? There's like, maybe I should say, if you drop me into any office that has a high percentage of women colleagues, and I'm usually in a place where there's always a high percentage of women colleagues because I'm an accountant and it's a women driven profession. So if you go there, right, and more than half, maybe let's say 80%, they'll be like, I go home, I need to watch my K drama, or they're watching their K drama while they're commuting to work, and they'll try
Oh
to
yeah.
mention about it. I said, I'm sorry, I don't know anything about K drama, but I know
I
there are
do
good
enjoy
K
a K
dramas
drama.
out there. I know there are good K dramas out there, and yeah, I don't think anybody should just judge people for their joy in consumption of their so-called popular media, so called.
Yeah, there's a lot of like maybe shaming people for liking what's popular, but it's also really difficult to make something popular, you know.
Yeah,
I feel
good
like
point.
if it was easy, then everyone could make a smash hit like all the time. So from like a creator's point of view, it's pretty admirable that they
Yeah,
made something that is super popular. Of course, there's the reiteration of like tropes and themes, but that's a completely different thing.
but tropes has been there for ages, because I think human nature is human nature.
Yes. That's why archetypes exist.
I don't think humans generally, unless you're the very odd one out, would react to things in a totally different manner. So, and that creates connection as well to the story and the characters. So that's why certain tropes do exist, and I take it that it's just part of all the stories that are out there.
Yeah, to this day, we still study the classics because we still tell stories in the
Yeah,
same way.
that is true. um, Other than, let's talk a bit about uh other kinds of guilty pleasures. But in the meantime, if anybody is watching us and want to ask Ren a question before we wrap up in about maybe ten minutes or so, please post them and I'll flash it out and we'll see if Ren can answer them. Um, but other than, we have been talking about a lot of shows. I know both of us are very excited. because we love watching all these TV series and just getting our brain into a different space. Uh, but I want to talk about other types of guilty pleasures, and I want to confess that one of my guilty pleasure is having a McDonald's chocolate fudge sundae. It is
All the
so
time? How often?
unhealthy. Not all the time, but when I try not to do it too many times because then you'll be like indulging. I mean, to it becomes a habit. But when I really indulge in this, I just sit down there and just like absorb the experience of having my McDonald's chocolate fudge sundae and just enjoy it. And it just gives me so much joy just to consume it.
It is very like rich.
Yeah, it's a
And
very rich thing. And I remember that there was once in the office where I was at. I think it wasn't a very good day. And I said that, you know what, uh, hack about calories and, unhealthy food. I'm just going to go to the McDonald's and get myself a chocolate pie sundae. And it really like helped soothe my soul. Like, okay, I'm ready to go back to work again, after like my lunch and face whatever's ahead of me. But yeah, I that reminds me, I haven't had a McDonald's chocolate fudge sundae for some time.
maybe
Maybe
you
I
can
should
get
do that.
yourself one as a reward for today's live.
Is there any other guilty pleasures that you have?
I feel like because you mentioned that, I remember my relationship with hummus, which is such a strange thing to think about, but I really can't control myself around hummus. There's just something about it. If my dad texts me, if my dad once texted me that, oh, there's hummus in the fridge, and it was 12 at night, I went downstairs and I finished both tubs. I don't
Wow.
and I just ate it with a carrot.
Let's just ask food. Yes, we are talking about food now.
I just ate it with a carrot, and I feel like it's
Wow.
really something that I have to. I don't know. We don't get hummus a lot, but when
Mm-hmm.
we do, it's
Yeah,
like
too.
it's terrible. I do feel quite guilty for consuming that much.
Yeah. And then recently, right, I'm really into um, the chips that are cheese flavored, like Tyrell's, or there's some in Mark and Spencer. Oh gosh, they're so good. Like cheese chips. And then if I really sit down and I decided to switch on my procedure, that will be my guilty pleasure too.
That's the optimal form
Yeah, optimal guilty pleasure hour.
with the food and the show and everything.
Yeah, and everything. um, there's another thing that sometimes I don't realize how long I actually spend doing, but that's when like I'm really chill and I don't have anything going on, and I start to research on the places that I want to go to next, and then
Kind of
and
like
then it
a
goes
manifesting thing.
and then it goes down into a deep rabbit hole as well because I started to go like into Google Maps and then started to see like what the places look like on Google Maps, and then I start to see what are the places that I could actually visit if I was there, and how long would my trip take, and then it was just like, and it's not just one place, okay? Sometimes it will go to another place, like a daydreaming, come
Yeah,
manifesting.
that is manifesting, and I also do that a lot, even though if it's not like if it's not like traveling, because I feel like I'm a very anxious traveler. But kind of planning trips with friends, especially, it's a thing that we do together. When we're together, we just do that same thing where we just look at like train stations and we plan the whole route. It's a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah,
fun,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
considered quote unquote like time wasting, but
Yeah.
It's
Time
not.
wasting, right? Because you're just down there and then like, talking about you're talking to your friend, but for me, that's like researching, kind of researching,
Hmm.
but not really. More like wishing
Yeah, actually.
and looking at other places, and then sometimes you say, oh, how do you even get there, And then you go into the YouTube parts where the travel logs they post on like how do they get there, and whether they go by trains or they hike there or something like this was hours.
It's still very satisfying to see. It's like you're building this vision that you can carry around all the time. That, oh, maybe one day I'll do X, Y,
Yeah, yeah,
Z.
yeah. I think I agree with you that it's satisfying. It's kind of like your mind is not just, how do you say, you're expanding your possibilities, the possibilities that you can have for yourself, and I think that's fun as well. I mean, I don't feel aggrieved I guess your mileage may vary. For me it's a happy place, even though if I know that I might not be able to get there, during my lifetime. But yeah, by doing that, I guess I learn a lot of um interesting sites that I may not be able to go to in the future because either they are too far away or not safe for a solo woman traveler to go to. Um, but then it's still interesting. I find that very interesting.
You're still broadening your horizons in some way, which
Yeah.
is how I kind of feel with media that I don't necessarily, or media that I don't think I'm going to like, but I consume anyway. You're still
What are the
broadening like
medias you don't
your
you don't
perspective.
really what are the medias that you don't really enjoy? Like
Oh, it's hard because I don't think I don't like a particular kind of media. Or maybe I engage with it
less.
earnestly or with
Yeah.
like an open mind, but sometimes you get to a point where it's like, okay, maybe this isn't necessarily for me, and it's usually just like a small thing that maybe I don't like a certain way the author or the writer phrases something. Maybe it's like a little pet peeve, but
Mm.
it's never quite like, oh, I hate this thing.
Yeah. Uh I can you usually I don't like war related
Mm,
um
more related.
movies. Yeah. If they are just stories or like a graphic novel or even books, I don't really enjoy it very much. I don't know why, but stories about war are just very depressing. And then
Mm-mm.
I know it's a reality, okay, but it's very depressing, and just didn't want to go into that space. Usually, in my times of
I
escape,
understand.
yeah. So war movies are not my thing, and um, but I can appreciate uh certain aspects of the war things that take on. So let's say, for instance, um, World War II, is a big thing in our region, right? It affected a lot of people in the region, but surprisingly enough, for the Americans, they are not into the World War II thing. I think it was more Europe.
Mm. Oh,
They don't
yeah, that's true.
really, yeah, they don't really look for World War II sites, when they are here in Singapore. But actually, you're talking about Southeast Asian regions, World War II sites in Singapore, there's a lot. There is a lot. And even more in some other places that are affected by World War II, especially in Malaysia, because they don't promote these spaces or the spaces are gone, like the bunkers, the forts and all that, they are all gone. But you can see preserved ones here in Singapore. And um, I appreciate that part of the history in World War II because it's part of our history. And I love going to like the deep very hole about stories that happen here as well. And only recently there are more and more of these stories coming up about the people involved during that time. Uh, And I to me, to know about this is to also not forget that such
Yeah.
horror actually happened, and we shouldn't repeat it, ever again. So yeah, that's the only like part of World War II I would probably go into, but
Engage.
I don't really like to watch the movies. In fact, how do I say it? When I visited Vietnam, they had the Vietnam War Museum as well. So it's like a very simple. It wasn't a very when you talk about museums, well-known museums, they have very good displays, and all that kind of thing. But in Vietnam War Museum, it was very bare bones, like faded pictures. They're not well maintained, that kind of thing. And I think that was in Ho Chi Minh, I think. Yeah, very sobering, and I just don't like to go for this kind of places. But sometimes you need to, because it tells you that this shouldn't happen again. And I hope it doesn't never ever happens again. It's just too sad. Yeah, too sad. Um, but yeah, uh, what other guilty pleasures there are before we wrap up and end this on a happy note? Sorry, guys, talking about World War. uh, let me see. Murder mysteries.
Oh, I do enjoy a murder mystery, unfortunately.
So that's one of the things you don't enjoy.
Oh, they're all right. I feel like maybe because I consumed a lot of them when I was a child, because there was a particular channel, I forget what it was,
Oh, there is a
that just
particular channel in
I
Philippines on
think there
murder
was a
stuff.
channel. It was like a cable channel, and there were quite a bit of crime things. So I consumed a lot of it as a kid. And I guess sometimes I know that true crime is like a genre that we can kind
Yeah,
of
true. Yeah,
pick apart a little bit. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was also a thing back in the day. Back in the day, if I sound so old. When I was a kid, that was like a there was a show that was kind of like a documentary, and it would portray different crimes. So I consumed a lot of that growing up, and maybe now it's not so much. I do prefer the procedural shows over it, over the
Are
murder
you watching any
mysteries.
procedures at this moment?
There's SVU on Netflix, but I
Yeah,
finished it. I ran out of seasons to watch. So I'm hoping that they add more, or they add the complete thing, because I started from, I think it was season 4, because that's what was available on Netflix. Still looking for it. I want to watch it properly.
yeah. I mean, I think also like how you call it. You feel as if the scale of balance is the scales are balanced more or less because the victims get some kind of reprieve from what happened to them, whereas in real life, that there may
Sometimes
not
it
be.
doesn't
Yeah,
happen.
yeah, they may not have a case to form. People don't believe them, the kind of thing. So yeah, I know a lot of people watch SVU because of that reason. uh I don't know whether you watch Orange is the New Black.
I have. I didn't finish the last season,
No.
but I
Did
think
you
that's only
enjoy
because
that?
I did enjoy the first few seasons, and then I think maybe it was just because I was in college and everything was happening. But towards the end, I was kind of slowing down, and I didn't finish the show. But at the time, I really enjoyed the first couple of seasons. I thought it was so unique and
Yeah, yeah, it was quite unique.
different.
Of course, I think it jumped the shark just like Gilmore Girls kind of jumped the shark. Yeah, you're
My
glitching a
camera's a
little.
little.
Yeah.
Apologize.
I
My
think the camera
camera's
has
been
enough
weird.
guilty pleasures.
Huh, hold on, let me just. But my voice, I think, should be fine. I hope.
Yeah, your audio
Hmm.
is still on.
Hold on, let me
All right.
just.
Yeah, but guilty
Okay.
pleasure. I mean, Orange is the New Black was kind of like my guilty pleasure for quite some time, and uh,
My
that
camera's a bit
was one
strange.
of
I'm
the
trying.
shows that had a lot of female characters in the forefront,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
It
it
was one of the
was.
rare shows that had a lot of female characters in the forefront, and it was all like written about them and their own individual stories in the prison. So I really enjoyed, as you said, the first few seasons. Of course, it jumped the shark, as in a lot of shows later on. They kind of like ran out of ideas, and the characters became a little more lame kind of thing. But yeah, it was also trashy in the sense there was a lot of drama and infighting and
But offered
competition.
like a really good perspective because prior
Yeah,
to that, I think we only had like stuff like Prison Break, which was
correct.
still all dudes.
It's more like action adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Orange is the new black. I think it broke a lot of grounds, so I enjoyed that as well. Uh, Let me see what else before we wrap up. Any other thing that you want to highlight that
Hmm.
you love?
None come to mind. I suppose I've already spoken about the hummus, so already confessed.
Yeah, we confess it. For her, it's hummus. For me, it's McDonald's chocolate fudge sundae. All right. Thank you so much, Ren, for coming on and joining me in my public confessions on the guilty pleasures that we have. You stay on while I kind of wrap up the live stream and tell what people can expect for the next episode or so. Hold on. Thank you for joining me, Festivus. It's a surprise to see you here, and I really appreciate your time taken with us. And for those out there, hi as well. You'll be able to watch this in full on YouTube and Facebook page. You'll be there to decide to take it down, but most probably to eternity or till the platform is alive or the platform is alive, and while Red Dot Diva is still going on as well. So you can kind of like look back and see what we have discussed and our many confessions on the guilty pleasures that we have. I'm so happy that Renren is able to join me today. I will start a new year of life with Red Dot Diva series with a woman creator, and because I feel that we need more a stage for us to talk about um, the women perspective of our work and our kind of like what we think about our lives. And I think we need a kind of stage for that. And I'm giving people an opportunity to discover, what our thoughts are, what our dreams are, and how we think about different aspects of the world, let's say, and the lives around us. So for the next session, I have an idea who or what might be the topic, but it's not firm yet. And please look out for the announcements on my social media so that you can kind of join in and see whether that topic gels with you. I have a suspicion it may be about tabletop games. There might be that's the next one that might be on board if everything works out. So look out for my announcements, and thank you again for joining us. I'm going to bring Renren back on stage again to say goodbye to everyone and hope to see you all again in the next episode. And I hope to meet you in person, Renren, one day.
Absolutely. Thank
See
you so much,
you guys,
Tina. I had so
everybody.
much fun.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.